While plenty of resources are available to help mitigate the risks of encountering icing, it is still possible to find yourself in icing conditions on the ground and in flight. Additionally, pilots of all certification levels should be aware of icing risks, even VFR pilots. Although you may be flying in visual meteorological conditions, all types of icing can accumulate in VMC and IMC conditions, so knowing how to handle an in-flight icing scenario is crucial to being a safe pilot. If you encounter icing, or even frost or snow, on the control surfaces, airframe, or both during a pre-flight inspection, stop and find the cause of icing. It could be because of an isolated freezing event, or even an ongoing winter weather system, and knowing the difference between these two can affect how icing will reform on ground operations or during critical phases of flight. Follow the proper de-icing techniques before continuing, even if this means making a no-go decision. If you decide to continue into flight, be sure to inspect airport conditions and consult air traffic control if available. Turn on instrument heating systems to clear any ice that may have not been observed during a pre-flight, like the pitot heat or carburetor heat. And of course, always follow any de-icing procedures or checklists given in the pilot operating handbook. Note: many general aviation aircraft are prohibited from flying into known icing conditions, so be sure to refer to your pilot operating handbook to ensure you do not violate federal aviation regulations. Be aware of the flying conditions you are flying in. If you are near areas or in the range of conditions that are close to icing, constantly scan your aircraft for structural icing and monitor your pitot static instruments and carburetor temperature gauge if equipped in your aircraft. Icing can appear as small reflective crystals on the windshield or as a glossy coating or rough, cloudy lumps accumulating on airfoil leading edges. Antennas, fuel drains, and pitot tubes can all be helpful places to identify icing accumulation. Note: clear icing in particular can form on locations other than the leading edge of the airfoil, so be sure to scan all control surfaces for icing potential. Knowing the signs that engine icing is occurring can be the difference between safe recovery and the declaration of an emergency. If your engine appears to get progressively rough and a loss of RPM is displayed while you are in the conditions prone to engine icing, you should execute de-icing procedures immediately. Additionally, if you notice your airspeed indicator is incorrect or is sluggish to clear changes in airspeed and you are in conditions prone to icing, you might be encountering instrument icing. To verify, execute controlled, noticeable, and careful altitude changes. If the vertical airspeed and altimeter remain still, this may be a sign of a static port blockage due to icing over. If the airspeed indicator does not change or shows erratic or other incorrect readings, you may have encountered pitot tube icing. When icing is observed, take immediate action. Activate all engine and instrument heating systems your aircraft is equipped with and expedite a descent to a previously known altitude without icing, or even to an altitude with temperatures above freezing. If the ice doesn't melt, contact air traffic control for help. Follow all emergency checklists in your operating handbook. This video series introduced how icing affects general aviation pilots and provided the tools necessary to avoid and mitigate the hazards of flight into unknown icing conditions. Icing, whether it's structural, engine, or instrument, can pose significant threats to the safe operation of an aircraft. We also learned the weather conditions that cause icing that show that this is a year-round threat. Knowing the foundational science behind how icing forms, the resources to predict it, and the procedures to mitigate or evade its effects during flight are crucial to keeping your crew members, your passengers, the people below you, and the national airspace system safe.